about it. You know, I would say that just looking at them, they have like a similar appearance. Tall, slender guys, look smart, well-dressed. But when it comes to their words, Languagehacker, very soft-spoken, very humble. Hatul, he's very opinionated. I think he is perhaps the most opinionated player to make an appearance here.
I agree.
Pop those peas.
Taunt Druid banned away from Languagehacker. Odd Warrior banned away from Hatul. Odd Warrior, pretty big ban here because it is undefeated in the Fall Championship.
It's been banned every time. And
yes, undefeated.
And I want to just talk about the Odd Warrior list real quick because we're not able to see it because it keeps getting banned away. It is strong against a lot of the aggressive decks that are out there and decks that have a certain amount of damage that they deal overall, like think some combo decks and stuff. But Hatul has 2 Faceless Manipulator,
boom,
2 Carnivorous Cube,
boom,
a Darius Crowley, 2 Fester Root Hulks,
boom,
and a Vicious Fledgling in the Odd Warrior deck. Not to mention the 2 Frothing Berserkers that are in there. It's like he's tempting people to not ban it. It's like, it's the weirdest thing because I don't think these cards are like bad cards, but I don't necessarily think that they're good cards either. It's just kind of weird, but it's just getting banned every time, so it's doing the job.
Boom.
Hats off to Hatul for getting that one banned every single match.
Yeah.
I personally, I would disrespect not ban it, and then I'd probably promptly lose to it, and then wish I had banned it. Taunt Druid banned away makes a lot of sense if you're on Hatul's side. He's got Big Druid as the Druid deck. He's got Spell Hunter as his Hunter deck. And he's got Combo Control Priest here featuring a fairly interesting Dragon package in the Combo Priest deck. You're looking at 2 copies of Scale Worm, a Cobalt Scalebane, 2 free from Amber, 1 Primordial Drake, 1 Alexstrasza.
Yeah, he's also got the Auchenai Soul Priest plus Circle of Healing. So a way to remove board states. Hatul said that he was building his lineup to be aggro, but he mid-ranged his lineups up to be control decks. He says that the anti-aggro decks have like, you know, 10 to 15 cards that are core that are going to beat aggro. But he said he wants to play his play style. He wants to make sure that he does have game against just about everything. And I got to respect that out of players when they say, you know what, I'm not going to be a filthy net decker. I'm going to bring my own stuff. I'm going to play to my play style, play to my strengths. And
I believe the direct quote was filthy net decker as well.
Yeah, from Hatul himself.
Yeah, he was very insistent on the fact that he believes a lot of pros just, they look at data, they rely on that data, they play the same decks. And he said, if you just think about the game and figure out what you want your deck to do, you can just build it in a different way.
Yeah.
I think that task is much easier said than done, but that's a claim that he very boldly makes, and he will stand by it. Ask him about it. I challenge you to.
I won't, actually. I'm not going to do that. Scary individual.
Languagehacker has found a very key card with Deathstalker Rexar.
Yeah, but right now, he's just going to kind of beat him down.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of pressure rolling. That's when Deathstalker Rexar really, I think, matters the most as well, is when you have this initial game plan of attack and you're able to follow up on that with Deathstalker Rexar. So if and when things go awry, your opponent is able to check all your resources, you have a reload card that starts continuing that pressure train over and over. Constantly asks your opponent, can you answer this?
Yeah. One of the reasons why we don't see Control Priest very often is it often struggles to do everything at once. Their card draw is not as consistent as some of the other combo decks like Shudderwalk or Malagos. And its control tools are not as consistent and come much later in the game than those decks as well. We're talking about Psychic Scream, Dustbreaker, which you need a dragon to activate even after drawing it. So there's a lot of things kind of working against the deck in the consistency department. And I feel like Hatul's is even more so that case. He does have more dragons, so Dustbreaker is activated more of the time.
I mean,
but in these types of games, he also just has a bunch of minions in his hand that are very bad for tempo.
That's true, but I mean, let's be quite honest. Languagehacker has drawn an incredible opening hand this game.
Yes, I was more talking about the deck as a whole, but
it's just the delivery amongst this, you know, particular game. It feels, I don't know, it just feels weird, you know. We're like, yeah, Priest is kind of slow as a control deck. Meanwhile, he's getting beat down by
You know
a
what,
fantastic
Admirable?
hand.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I just wanted to, kind of put it out there. Not everyone sees Death Rattle Hunter draw these kinds of hands all the time. If you're watching Death Rattle Hunter, you're like, man, I was thinking about playing that.
I was just trying to sound smart.
You're not going to have this happen every time. And you are smart, TJ. You're good enough. You're smart enough. Doggone it. People like you. Languagehacker's just going to keep trucking, though. This hand has allowed him a lot of freedom to develop as he chooses.
When a lot of people talk about this matchup, too, they tend to say, outside of a crazy early start, Priest has a lot of tools to fight against Druid. Psychic Scream just wrecks this deck because he doesn't have card draw. A lot of times it relies on those big, expensive Death Rattle minions to put the pressure on, and Psychic Scream just completely interrupts egg plans, cube plans, Katharina plans, all that stuff.
That's a pretty nice pickup for Hatul, I think. He's coming up on a Scream turn, and when that happens, one of the things that you don't want to do is just leave your opponent with a bunch of board presence. So something you can pretty easily do with that Shadow Word Death is take out this 5/5, heal up a little bit. You're going to take some damage in the meantime, but maybe Languagehacker feels compelled to pressure into this board a little bit more. Now, if Languagehacker smells a Psychic Scream on the horizon, that may prompt him to actually use Deathstalker Rexar here.
Yeah.
And since his hand doesn't contain a lot of pressure, that's exactly what he's going to do. Yeah. So Hatul was able to check the early game, even though it was pretty darn crazy from Languagehacker. Round 2. Can you beat the Build-A-Beasts?
What this also does is it makes the Psychic Scream quite a bit more awkward because you're coming up on some big power turns for Languagehacker. You Psychic Scream now without a second backup Psychic Scream in your hand, or Shadow Visions to try and find one.
Yeah, it really takes away that Psychic Scream option here. There's just not nearly enough on board to make that happen.
Yeah.
Duskbreaker, give your opponent a 5/5. Ooh, that is scary.
Doesn't have to worry about the steady shot anymore, but zombies potentially just as threatening because Languagehacker can find those big bombs, and I think that's what Hatul realizes.
I mean, in real effect, Hatul took one attack off the board there.
Yeah.
And he actually stuck it onto a minion that is, more powerful against the 3/5 than 2 3/3s would be.
Yeah.
Kind of weird to think about.
He did draw a card.
He's just got to do something. If he sits here and keeps doing nothing, he's just going to die. So, he has to try to do anything to get something rolling.
Shimmering Courser picked up from the Zombies.
Ziliax is going to be just a block if he plays it. Languagehacker seems like he really wants to take this trade. Something to think about is if you don't trade this minion, what's your opponent going to do with it? Nothing, I agree.
I think Shadow Reaper Anduin maybe was a consideration there going into turn 8.
The biggest one, I'd say.
But he still would stick his Ziliax on the board, and I think he really values that additional damage. And also, Shadow Reaper Anduin means that Hatul just doesn't have any more healing. So all of a sudden, this Zombies, which is a Shimmering Courser Jungle Panther, 7 attack stealth minion that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers from his opponent.
And Hatul's going to probably end up having to get a little bit desperate here and start drawing some cards. I mean, right now his hand's just not providing him anything.
Is someone injured?
Yeah, 2 cards here thanks to the circle. Honestly, I feel like the play that I've seen from Hatul has been quite solid. I feel like some of the matchups have been a little bit tough. Oh my.
1 turn away.
So now, Languagehacker is actually presented with a pretty interesting opportunity. If he pushes 5 to face, it sets Hatul down to 5. And then he can play Candle Shot, set him down to 4, play the big Stealth Beast. That threatens lethal. Hatul's forced to play Shadow Reaper Anduin or Psychic Scream if he has him. If it's Shadow Reaper Anduin he plays, can Crush kills him. If it's Psychic Scream, you still have pressure.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is to set him to 4.
This is a full face kind of turn.
Yeah.
Languagehacker, he's just past that threshold where Hatul can really do anything about it.
Yeah.
short of a top deck free from Amber and then a crazy result.
With the Hunter's Mark in hand, I don't even think that's a crazy result. I guess it would have to be free from Amber into a...
I don't even know what.
Statue, but that's...
I don't think Statue gets it done even.
Yeah, I don't think that, because he'd Hunter's Mark, kill it, he'd heal for 4, he'd go back up to 8, and then he'd just play...
King Crush, yeah.
King Crush, so...
You're right. It's checkmate for Languagehacker. He's going to pick up game 1.
Cyber Leaf as well.
I mean, this matchup is frankly quite tough for Languagehacker. Hatul was face down one of the best openings I think that Languagehacker could have had, and just gets pressured out.
Yeah. And you can see the additional tech not paying off for Hatul in this matchup. That Cobalt Scalebane, any other control tool in this matchup, I feel like could have been a lot better. Even Cabal Shadow Priest, which he decided to cut from the deck.
I don't think it would have made a difference in this one.
Maybe not.
It was all the 5/5s early on. You know, they just got in so much damage that Hatul was forced to react in the most defensive ways that you possibly can. Why was that funny? You just...
I just should have said something besides going home.
On Monday.
Yeah, because they all go home on Monday.
Not Hatul, he's hanging out for a bit.
Going home on Monday, not being a world championship competitor. That's what I should have said.
It's awfully specific.
That's just what's going to happen. Languagehacker has a 1-0 lead in the series, and we talked about it earlier. Hatul has a lot of bad matchups left remaining. Languagehacker with the Odd Rogue this game, and Hatul going with the Big Druid. I feel like this one could be okay. With the Big Druid as opposed to Taunt Druid, which I think it's probably its closest relative, you have a little bit more game because I think spreading play, that's the big one. But he's still got a lot of expensive stuff in his deck, and his early game is very inconsistent, and that's where Languagehacker thrives.
Well, mind you, Taunt Druid has Lesser Jasper Spellstone in it. Big Druid doesn't have that.
Yeah. It does have Wraths, which Taunt Druid sometimes has. It depends what you decide to go with. The most common list, I think, has like 1 Wrath. If you want to go for the double Sleepy Dragon plus double Dragon Hatcher package, but
Wraths are okay. They're not the strongest versus the ideal Odd Rogue minion, which is Hench Clan Thug. Languagehacker doesn't have that yet, but if he picks that up in the next 2 turns, it's going to force some stuff from Hatul. He's got a fantastic opening hand to fight against Odd Rogue though, and it's these types of opening hands from Hatul that really lead to those strong victories. The fact that he's got Wild Growth next turn into the swipe. You can take care of the Hench Clan Thug. You know, the one piece that's really missing from this puzzle is some form of card draw, really, for Hatul.
Yeah. Which is basically just limited to Nourish and Branching Paths. That does not run Ultimate Infestation.
It's too big at the top end.
Yeah, he's got Ysera, double Sleepy Dragon, Oakheart, Hadronox, double Dragon Hatcher, Lich King, double Primordial Drake. That's his top end.
And he's drawing some big stuff right now, and this could really be where it spells trouble. You know, Languagehacker with the small drops and the Cold Blood in hand, it's pretty tough to just get through a Fungal Mancer really easily. And here, you know, you got to look at Languagehacker's spot and think, you know, maybe I'm supposed to Cold Blood this. It opens me up to a swipe, but it forces a swipe from my opponent on a 5-mana turn, and it lets me get a minion down that I can Fungal Mancer. Yeah, you know, if I'm Languagehacker in this spot, I'm Cold Blood.
Yeah, it's almost a lot of times it's going to be.
Whoa! He's moving in. Languagehacker says, enough. I'm going in. This play, honestly, is quite scary if you're in Hatul's spot. I mean, you get to swipe this, and Branching Paths will certainly make you a lot more comfortable about it.
That was an all-in if I've ever seen one.
I don't blame him either. I mean, what liberties does his hand really offer him? You know, he's going to use Deadly Poisons and trade.
And this is the weak point for Hatul. It's the turns 3 through 7, which are the glaring weak points. And you talked about it. No Spellstones means limited removal, which means that Tar Creeper sticks, and he gets to just Fungal Mancer two targets next turn.
And honestly, the way that Languagehacker's playing right now really plays to Amira's unstable element as well. The one thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see him hold on to this Argent Squire. Yeah. In case he draws, you know, almost Vile Spine specifically, but also for SI7 agent. You know, like it's like the times that holding the Ardent Squire matters, it matters a lot. And Hatul's hand is still quite heavy, but he's got Malfurion, he's got Branching Pass, and then he's got the big 9s. If he gets past these next couple of turns safely, I think that he's going to get out of this game.
Yeah. He's also got Naturalize for his own Hadronox, which could bring back the taunts that he was able to play earlier on to just end the game on the spot.
Like, you know, a bunch of 1/5s are going to be fine in this scenario. Just trying to exhaust the resources.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, Spreading Play can exist in this deck and Malfurion with Hadronox, because of the fact that with no Witching Hour, sometimes in the matchups where you need it, Hadronox plus bring back a bunch of 1/5s is pretty good.
Hold the Ardent Squire.
The light protects me.
Rewarded with a 6/6.
Glory to the Sindora.
I like 6/6s. They're big.
They're huge. That's a pretty scary board.
It's a very scary board, especially when you only have 8 mana. Now, Branching Pass, Naturalize provides a lot of defense in this spot, but if you Naturalize, that means the Hadronox, you know, the rush of naturalizing your own Hadronox is gone. If you use Lich King here, it's going to get steamrolled. And you're sitting at 15, and if you Branching Pass, you really don't do anything else this turn.
Yeah. And then you just hope that the Sleepy Dragon you play next turn is not going to get Vile Spine.
Yeah, which your opponent would have to draw Vile Spine and something to play.
Yes.
So there's still a number of scary draws from Languagehacker, you know, specifically Leroy and Myris and Stable Element. But outside of that, Hatul's not in a really bad shape, I think, to have a chance in this one.
Yeah. I guess Fungomancer would also be a pretty big deal in this scenario.
Also a green skin included.
There's actually quite a few bad draws, but he's got 20 cards left in the deck, so there are still a ton of other bad stuff in there, like Fireflies, Sousy Deckhand,
Direwolf, Tar Creeper, Vicious Fledgling. Even basically anything that doesn't immediately deal damage is pretty bad. Cold Blood, I think, is very weak because he doesn't have any cards left, so holy smokes. How much damage is that? So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 11 damage for Languagehacker, but he has to use a Cold Blood to do it, which means that the 9 mana cards are going to start sticking to the board.
Yeah.
So many options.
So I think there's a really good chance that Languagehacker is supposed to save this Cold Blood to push through a Sleepy Dragon or what have you.
I agree.
Just use the 6/6. Use the Henge Clan Thug. I want the Henge Clan Thug on board because it keeps growing.
Yes.
Now, the fear of that is if Death Coil got picked up from Hatul's side and he's got something big to add alongside it.
But at this point, you kind of got to take that risk because he is...
To give you that growing potential.
Yeah. Also, Sleepy Dragon exactly comes down next turn. That means the Henge Clan Thug survives the attack after attacking with your dagger, which is a big deal.
He's going to use the Henge Clan Thug. I don't mind it. There is some merit to doing that.
Yeah, I guess Blood Knight still survives the Sleepy Dragon hit, but that growing potential, I think, is a big deal. But
Cool. Like, what would you think this is right now? I mean, your opponent just didn't play their card.
It's not Leroy.
It's definitely not Leroy.
You're dead to Leroy.
I don't think it's a 1-drop. I think your opponent... Well, it could be like a Sousy Deckhand or Dire Maul or an Ardent Squire.
It could be a lot of things.
Could be a Cold Blood.
Could be Vile Spine.
Looking at it from Hatul's perspective, the range of it is very scary, is my point. It's either something that is very important or it's something that's not important at all.
Yeah.
And so it polarizes the range from Languagehacker or Hatul. You know, you kind of second guess yourself.
Could also be Baku, who's at 8 mana last turn. So there's about half the cards in this deck that this could still be.
And so notice here, when he thinks about it, he's like, if I play a big dragon, I can die to a Vile Spine being held in hand.
Yeah.
If I armor up, however, I can get out of this pretty cleanly. I think this is really smart from Hatul.
Death is eternal.
And Naturalize is scary, though.
It's not.
Oh, boy. That's a Cold Blood.
Yeah. What do you think about the armor up versus attack?
I think that Hatul definitely should be attacking the Dire Maul. Because now he takes 7. I think in Languagehacker's spot, I like playing the Firefly there's only one really big punish to playing it, and that's if you draw the Baku. So his position may be just so good that it doesn't matter. Like, don't draw the Baku, just, play around drawing the Baku, and you're gonna win.
And that's game.
Yeah.
This actually all goes back to him not attacking the Dire Mole.
Yeah. Not attacking the Dire Mole ended up being a giant blunder in this one.
Wow. I actually thought Hatul was in a good spot, but for some reason, Languagehacker just sneaks that win. And a big win at that.
The 12 armor on the branching pass makes a lot of sense.
Because he doesn't capitalize the L in his name.
And there was no A.
And there was no A. He took out some of the vowels in his name to really hack some language, so to speak.
I remember calling him Languagehacker to his face.
Yeah.
And he didn't correct me. He's just too nice.
He is. He's a very polite and calm individual. And being calm, I guess, helps you in this type of environment where, everything's on the line for him as a player. He's definitely a guy that's kind of worked his way up the system, started in TESPA, graduated school, started competing, almost full-time in tournaments. We even saw him at all the America's Dream Hacks, and one in particular, Austin, he had a 9-0 Swiss rounds. So that tells a lot about a player, because there's a ton of great tournament, like Swiss tournament players in the Americas that he had to get through. And now he's here on what is almost Hearthstone's biggest stage, trying to qualify for what is actually Hearthstone's biggest stage at the World Championship.
Hatul's been no stranger to that competitive play either. He's been more on the organization side, though.
Yeah, he's organized a lot of fireside gatherings and community events in Israel, and even though he qualified from the Challenger system, he's actually got more HCT points than a few of the competitors here,
including Languagehacker. So he was very adamant about, he's not like a true underdog, I guess, as we called it earlier in the week. He's actually a player that's just qualified a different way than everybody else, and has just as much reason to call himself a top-tier competitor as everybody else, because he's earned the points to do so. And he's done it his own way, in just about every regard. His own decks, his own play style, his own personality.
I wonder.
I got nothing to add. That was just perfect. It's beautiful in every way. You said everything that I wanted to say. Thank you, TJ.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Languagehacker faced with a really difficult turn. He clearly planned to use Farsight, and actually, if I was in Languagehacker's position, I would have been using Farsight here. There's a big benefit to Keliseth, but I don't think he's going to be bringing the beat down to Hatul anytime soon. And so one of the reasons that I like him going with Farsight is because Languagehacker's Shutterwalk deck has been built a little bit differently than the others. And it's a one-card change, but it's a big change. He's got Hemet Jungle Hunter in there. Destroys all the 3 or less cost cards left in your deck. The whole week, we've been seeing Shutterwalk decks struggle to find their tools at the end of the game. I think back to the disastrous situation that happened earlier with Lion King, where his Zola and his Grumble were the last 2 cards in his deck. If he had Hemet Jungle Hunter in that game, he would have won.
Yes.
And Languagehacker, I think, has been having one of the better performances with Shutterwalk this far, and I contribute a lot of that to the lean effect. The fact that you can speed up that process of effective card drawing is a really big deal.
Yes. I really like that inclusion with the kind of style that he's been playing. As you said, a lot of times throughout this weekend, the Shutterwalk Shamans have been losing just because they're not able to find their combos quick enough. But this one could be tough, because Hatul, if Languagehacker's not able to find the combo quick enough, Hatul has a lot of big stuff. And even with Shutterwalk, if you can't get through a big board, even if you're going infinite with Shutterwalks, they could have 6 big midgets on the board that they double branching paths and kill you anyway from 30.
Yeah, but I mean, Languagehacker's having some pretty big turns here.
Yeah.
One of the major things I look at is the fact that he's got already 2 hexes in hand, and the fact that that Hatul, one of his big packages is Hadronox. Hex is one of the things that can really douse those plans. And when you've drawn Ysera, you've drawn Hadronox, you've used your Dakari Enchanter, the effect of Oakheart has been, cut significantly in this spot.
Yeah, he's going to pull a Bright-Eyed Scout.
Awesome.
And a Dragon Hatcher.
Cool.
Now the Dragon Hatcher will pull a dragon, but let's say he draws another Dragon Hatcher between now and the time he plays Master O card.
Or that Languagehacker just has board by that time. You know, he just grumbled. Grumble lives. Acolyte, Saronite, Life Drinker. I mean, there's so much that Languagehacker has going for him right now that I feel like Hatul's going to have trouble just fending off Languagehacker's pressure. Yeah, at this point. That is not a good sign if you're in Hatul's spot. You just get beat down by a 7-7 right now.
Yeah.
You know, I look at this last turn. Hatul is just drawing all the top end. Now, granted, there's a lot of top end, but this is not the situation where you want to be drawing top end. I mean, this is like match point for Languagehacker. This is disaster.
5 9-drops in hand, plus an 8-drop.
You said 5 9-drops?
Well, he's got 5 9-drops in hand.
There's only 1 left in the deck. That's a lot of 9-drops.
Well, there's 2. There's a second Dragon Hatcher, and then there's a second Sleepy Dragon. But still, point made.
You want to draw the Wild Growths and the Nourishes, the Greedy Sprite. You want to draw the stuff that ramps you. You know, there's just as much of that as there the other side. Draw the wrong half.
I don't know about that, Admirable. This is called Big Druid.
It's 2 naturalizes and then 8 and 9 drops.
Speak to me.
That's not what it is, though.
Andrew's drawing second Serenade Chain Gang.
You do not need Shutter Walk if you're delivering this kind of damage. Hatul, I'm pretty sure, is just dead. I'll tell you what.
Takes a sip of his water.
Grumble is still a 6-mana 7-7. And against a deck that does not apply pressure and does not have a lot of removal, that's going to kill him. I think Hatul maybe had to have naturalized this Grumble a lot earlier. And he knows that he's defeated. Languagehacker's got the goods. And in one of the quickest best of 5s that we've seen this weekend, Languagehacker's going to take it down and move on to the top 8. My hat's off to Hatul. He brought his own decks. I think